Okay, good evening, everybody. Not loud enough. Okay. First, right off the bat, I'd like to thank you very much, Roshi John, for inviting me here, and for much more, actually, for being a most wonderful Dharma guide and friend and support for rather a long time, actually, but especially the last 3 years. Most remarkable blessing for me to be able to come somewhat under your wing, if I could dare to put it that way. Yeah. Thank you also, Natalie. Yes, indeed. Natalie Goldberg. There was a great pivotal sort of figure in my life, actually, starting about 30, I'm going to be rather exact, actually, 32 years ago. When I first came out to New Mexico in 1991, and I had the temerity to leave a note for Natalie at the Taos bookstore, whose name I can no longer remember, and asking if she might be willing to give a little time to a British visiting author. and the note was delivered, and apparently Natalie's always told me that she liked two things about the note. The first was that I called myself an author, maybe a little arrogantly, I don't know. And I think also that I had, am I right, Natalie, my Jewish last name helped a bit, yeah? A British Jew, what are they like, you know? Yeah, so actually this place has been very important to me. Actually, I first learned Zazen, specifically. I've been meditating in another style, back that I was taught in London from my age of 24. And then when I was 29, I was here. And I went to, Natalie encouraged me actually to come to this Saragordo temple. Of course, this building didn't exist then. And I learned to do Zazen from a priest under Baker Roshi called Robert Winsome, who sadly died rather young a few years later. And it was very sort of important moment for me, because I'd been diligently meditating twice a day out of desperation since my early-ish 20s. I've been very unhappy. I had a kind of breakdown when I was 19 years old. Was very, very sort of, I've been brought up in a very sort of intellectual, I think probably almost to be fair to say, sort of intelligent climate, in Oxford University. And I was a serious sort of, schoolboy. I worked very hard. I did well. I got a scholarship and things. And then when I was 19, I suddenly was just knocked sideways by a series of events I won't go into right now. But I had no, I'd say I had zero wisdom at all, just negative wisdom. I didn't know, I didn't realize even that, it's hard to explain exactly, but I was very unhappy, and I knew that I was living in a kind of hell, but I actually couldn't have said, I'm unhappy. I couldn't have said that. I just felt something about me, something about life, they don't mix. This is what it's like, it's awful, and I'm going to just have to, and it's my fault, and I have to figure out how to be a better person so I don't feel this way. That was approximately what I thought, and there is no way. I didn't really think there was a way. And then I happened to have two good friends, one 2 generations older than me, and one my age, who both meditated. And they did, the main game in town in London in the late 80s, it was TM, transcendental meditation. That was, there were posters in the tube trains, it was the Beatles did it, or had done it. And they actually, they didn't bill it as kind of study yourself or find out who you are or touch the infinite. So nothing like that. It was just life tool for the busy. That's what they called it. This will help your career. That was the whole thing. And I desperately wanted help with everything, including my career. So I went and did it. And as soon as I got trained in it, I was just ruthlessly rigorous with what they said you had to do. 20 minutes twice a day. And it was my lifeline. And actually, it was a great thing that I started meditating. And I understand and assume all of you have realized that. The power of starting meditating, having a space in your day. It's got to be daily, really, I think. Having a moment when you're still, when you're quiet, more than a moment. They said twice a day is necessary, like the bookends of the day. Anyway, I believe it was really, I trusted meditation itself right off the bat. Then I come out here. I've been reading Natalie's, one of her books actually really hit me hard. I was a writer already, I started quite young. Then met Natalie, then realized there's something about her. And I just kind of felt it was to do with the Zen, which she did daily. And, she's a very serious practitioner. And I said, I want to do it. Actually, she read me a bit of Dogen and I heard it. I didn't understand a word of it, but I knew I want something about that is like a star in my sky, to steer by. And she said, come up here. So I came up here and I met Robert Winston and we went in the little temple and it was so simple. It was so simple. It was just sit, be upright, don't slouch. Actually, because we did in TM, you sat anywhere you like, really. Fine, be on a sofa, get comfy, lean back. No, be upright. And basically add nothing. Because TM, you sort of added something. I love TM and I'm grateful to it. And I think it's fantastic that it's spread and helped a lot of people. But there was something about basically, I'm almost going to say do nothing, but it wasn't quite because we followed the breath, But it was add nothing. Add nothing, just sit and watch, basically. And it was, you can have beginner's luck, right? It was electrifying. It was just electrifying to sit there not doing anything except noticing, paying attention to what was already here, And then I was, I was an anxious young man, and the idea then was like, oh my God, which do I do? I really like this Zen thing, but I'm so committed to this other thing. And what happens if can I do both? How about that? Why don't I try doing TM and Zen? But actually, gradually, it was clear I just was going to do Zen, and then I had the misfortune to well, I recognized then there's this thing you got to do, a session. Oh no, oh no, But anyway, I got through that, and once the first one was the back of the first session was broken, so to speak, broke the back of it, got through it, or it broke me, or whatever. And I never really looked back. Actually, done different pathways within Zen, but cutting forward then 10 years to 2001 here, this building had just been built. And we were here in Santa Fe from late 2001 for a whole year. I'd lived in New Mexico much of the last 30 odd years, most of them. And then here in Santa Fe for this particular time, actually coming here every morning, and And when it was really I mean, I think sort of brand new. And I remember sitting here every morning for about 3 months, up until there was a big, amazing inauguration night with whirling dervishes and lots of different speakers, and a beautiful, beautiful event. But every morning coming here and sitting, of course, and then service with a chant. And I remember quite often we'd do this chant that was a sort of address to the whatever spirits and guardians there are and ancestors in this valley. I remember that vividly, and it seemed very beautiful to me, coming from my rather, rationalist sort of university background. Why not? Who knows what's here? To address it and to give thanks and to ask permission and to ask for any forgiveness that might be needed to be here, occupying this space, which in a sense is always on loan and yet freely given. And let's give thanks, and look how this community has flourished, and this organization, really, what a beacon it has become. Okay, that's my little intro. Thank you, Roshi. I'm going to talk about a view of practice that I found helpful. Particularly, actually, I found it helpful in the last 3 years. And it's sort of, I'd say, kind of extracted from a 7th century Chinese Buddhist document, which identifies two sort of critical, important, sort of language a little vague here, but sort of aspects of practice. Two critical parallel paths, even, we might say, in practice. And basically, this might not be a great surprise to some of you who know Zen somewhat. Because there's an early document attributed to Bodhidharma called the Two Gates, or the Two Entrances. And in that document, by the way, am I speaking loud enough? It's good. Okay, not too loud. No. Okay. So in this, some of you will know this, Two Entrances or Two Gates by Bodhidharma. He says basically, essentially, one gate is, I'm paraphrasing a bit, but is gradually developing more equanimity, and in time starting to try to recognize, quote unquote, the Dharma. And then the other path is not gradual. It simply says, recognize the Dharma. So, 1 second, please. I want to just gonna double check my language here. Yeah, he called it actually enter by principle. That's the second way. Enter by principle. What principle? That one recognizes that all living beings, common and sagely, are identical to the true nature. So all living beings are identical to true nature. That's what I was calling the Dharma, which is another translation to call that. It's merely because of unreal covering of adventitious dust that the true nature is not revealed. So it's always here, just a little bit hidden, see it. That's the second way. The first way, gradually become more peaceful, more equanimous, more okay with the way things unfold. Don't take credit when things go well. It's only former past karma that's positive ripening. Don't get too crushed when things don't go well. It's not really down to you, it's down to past karma, also ripening. Don't take things through too personally. Gradually become more equanimous. And when you feel ready, then you can start engaging with this sort of studying of the Dharma, studying of true nature. See, maybe you'll catch a glimpse and gradual. Okay, so now cut forward to 7th century, and there's this document that says we have two kinds of practice. One is Bodhidharma's way, which is basically, really whatever it says, basically, Bodhidharma took as his teaching emptiness. See emptiness. Again, these are different words for the same thing. Dharma, true nature, emptiness. Actually, all pointing to the same sort of revelatory opening to breakthrough experience, to kind of fundamental principle of how things really are and how they unfold. Okay, that's one path that we've got. This commentator is saying in the 7th century, here in China. Second way we've got is represented by another teacher, Seng Cho. Also early, like Bodhidharma, his dates are thought to be 480 to 560. Bodhidharma thought to have arrived in, 527, some say, but he was 127 at that point and died when he was under 50, whatever it was. Anyway, so obviously a lot of legend folded in there. Seng Cho, his way was the fourfold meditation on the foundations of mindfulness. Okay, now that is a direct reference to this sort of classic document in the Pali Canon, the Satipatthana Sutra, which is a very remarkable, sort of rather thorough map of how to practice, how to develop mindfulness, the different areas, 4 different areas in which to develop mindfulness, various methods within each area for developing mindfulness. And can't go into that now, but I will say that the primary, the bedrock of it all is developing mindfulness of body, coming back and living in this body, not checking out from the body, being here in this body. And it's a gradual path, gradually getting clearer, gradually getting purified. In other words, gradually having things loosen, patterns loosen, and gradually opening up more to being able to be alive and awake and aware here and now, and noticing more what's going on inside, when we're getting reactive, when we're getting caught up in our stuff, cherishing more what's going on outside and being more attentive and more responsive so we can act helpfully, less harmfully, more helpfully. So then the 4 foundations of mindfulness actually naturally lead in the sequence laid out in that sutra. They naturally lead to what are known as the 7 factors of awakening. It's a gradual process of sort of cultivating certain attitudes and states of meditative awareness, of which mindfulness is the foundation. But beyond mindfulness, we can cultivate. It can evolve into other aspects of practice, of meditative practice, that can lead to all 7 of these factors of awakening being developed. And then, awakening. Doesn't say too much about what that is actually in the Satipatthana Sutra, but it's a lead up to it. So right here you can see, sorry, I must finish this document by the later monk, talking about Sengcho with his gradual cultivation, gradually helping us, messed up humans, kind of tend ourselves and gently, gradually, over time, get a bit clearer, and then clearer, and then clearer, and clearer, and clearer. On the other hand, Bodhidharma saying, emptiness, see it. This is how it's laid out. Two ways, but this master is called actually Dao Xuan, 7th century master. He says, actually, these are two ruts of a single road. There's a wagon track that must have two ruts. These two ways are two ruts of one road. Okay, so that's the thing I most want to sort of come on to now. Two ruts, fine, one road. Okay, so let me go a little bit more into second rut now, and I'm going to do it by reading from actually this Rinzai master Soka Morinaga Roshi, who wrote a wonderful little book called An Ongoing Lesson in the Extent of My Own Stupidity. And if you haven't read it, I really recommend it. And he's got I'm just going to read a little bit where you sort of get a sense of the flavor of this rut, where it's not about, gradually sort of systematically, programmatically cultivating your practice. It's like this. He's with his master, Zwigan Roshi. This is mid-20th century. Roshi's room was small, 4.5 tatami mats. The Roshi, actually, I'm just going to tell you, has asked him, Roshi has said to him, he's all he's kind of doing these days is some zazen and a whole lot of cleaning in the monastery. And one morning, the Roshi says to him, hey, go into my room and from my desk, look towards the alcove. Okay. So he thinks, oh no, what have I done? And he goes back into the room and he's looking around. He says the distance between the desk and the alcove could not have been more than 2 meters. But though I carefully inspected the area, I could not find even so much as a bit of dust or a drop of water left from my sponging. I crawled about the room on all fours, but I could not find a problem anywhere. I planted myself there for a while and tried to think it over, but I hadn't a clue as to why Roshi was irritated with me. It couldn't be helped. I resigned myself to being yelled at again and returned to the dining room. I don't understand what I did wrong in the morning cleaning, I nervously admitted to Roshi. Please show me. You fool, he came back at me. Who said you did anything wrong in the cleaning? This morning, I put that single rose of Sharon in the bud vase. It goes well with the scroll and looks so beautiful. So I told you to go take a look at it. You did see the flower, didn't you? It dawned on me that I had not, in fact, noticed the flower. I went back into Roshi's room to look. The wall of the alcove, which had been standing for over 250 years, was darkened. Against the smoky wall, there was a scroll with a single large calligraphy saying, dew. When a Zen monk writes the word dew, it is not only to the natural phenomenon that they refer, but to direct revelation. Nothing concealed anywhere. Truth revealed in all things. Buddha revealed in all things. If you all just let the scales drop from your eyes, you realize then that everything everywhere is filled with truth. Everything everywhere is filled with Buddha. Everything everywhere is to be appreciated. This is what the scroll of dew was hanging there to say. Beneath the scroll, a large pure white blossom seemed to float out from the old plastered wall and bathe the eye with its beauty. Just moments before, I had failed to see that flower. My eyes had been tightly shut to it. And herein lies the difficulty of practice. My oversight was to become grist for my teacher's lectures. After I made this blunder, Zwigan Roshi was wont to say during talks, if the heart is caught up, fettered, you cannot see even what you are looking right at. Why, just the other day, that fool over there. So you see the logic, so to speak, of the practice is just see, it's not, let's help you get situated in your body. Let's help you find your way to getting familiar with your breath. Let's help you find your way to starting to recognize what an emotion feels like in your body. Some of us didn't know, actually, but so emotionally illiterate that I didn't know when I was 25 years old what an emotion actually was in my body. When I started meditating, I would feel this like an iron rod in my chest. And what's this? And I went to the, when you did transcendental meditation, you're allowed like 2, I think, free checks with the instructor. And I went and had a check with my instructor. So I keep getting this weird feeling. So it's like something really hard and uncomfortable in my chest. And he said, oh, well, I mean, it might be a feeling. What? And actually, I was very lucky. I think I look back on it, I think how lucky I was that I was working on a PhD at the time, and I never finished it. And I also was playing in a band, a world music band in London. And one of the musicians, she was quite a sort of proselytizer for therapy. You know what I mean? Especially when we're a bit young, she was in her mid-20s, I mean, when we get into therapy, if we really get into it, we can become real kind of therapy bores. Like everybody should be doing it. You're all in denial. I got that way myself a few months later. But anyway, she said, you need therapy. And I was like, oh my God, it's the last thing I wanted to be told, But somehow I think the meditation and just created enough of a softening that I could actually go to the Saturday morning therapy group that she was part of and start a very reluctant journey, Anyway, none of that here. No therapy here, right? So this is him later when I'm just going to share this with you because so you get a sense of, it's by no means a practice without sense and wisdom. This hardcore Bodhidharma based one way rut number 2, as I'm calling it in our path, it's not for everybody, but it is for some. So he says, he's doing insane amounts of zazen. During the sessions, you might think it's already an insane amount of zazen. No, not enough. 10 at night when they all go to bed, he's out there sitting. So half the night gets half an hour sleep, back to zazen. Just brutal. Because why? Well, because in this kind of practice, he's been given a koan, a little nugget. And that little nugget of a phrase has a reputation of being able to help us suddenly see more clearly. So sitting with it. During doing Zazen and still more Zazen, I chalked up nothing but distress and fatigue. Both my head and my body began to lose their normal function. The thought that I would surely meet my death if I continued in this vein arose many times to interrupt my practice. But to give the conclusion before the explanation, I can tell you that matters most definitely did not take that turn. The extremes of fatigue and anguish did not give way to death, but evolved, quite contrary to expectations, into a curve that led right back to where I had started out. One night, I sat in the middle of the night, a lump of fatigue sitting on a zazen cushion. Both body and consciousness were in a haze, and I could not have roused the desire for satori if I had wanted to, when suddenly the fog cleared and a world of lucidity opened itself. Clearly seeing, clearly hearing, it was yet a world in which there was no me. I cannot fully explain that time. To venture an explanation would be to err somewhere. The one thing I am sure of is that in this instant, the functioning of the heart with which I was born came into play in its purest form. I could not keep still in my uncontainable joy. And then actually he gets permission to leave the training center that he's in so he can cross Tokyo in the middle of the night to go back to his old master and tell him. He wakes him up in the middle of the night and tells him, I finally saw. Roshi sprang from his bed, examined me for a time as if with a glare, and said, it's from now on. From now on, sit strongly. So that's okay, so now, what's the point here? Well, we got one cart track, one wagon track with two ruts. That's one rut. It's possible. For some folks, it's a good way, but for many more, I'm not so sure. Because it seems to me you can spend a lot of time hoping for some kind of breakthrough experience, like Soka Morinaga Roshi had. But you don't know. It's, as Robert Aiken Roshi said, practice, enlightenment or awakening is an accident, and practice may make you more accident prone. I'm putting in the may, actually. It may not, we don't know. But when we're sitting, there is a natural path of gradually developing our capacity to be whole, to include more of ourselves, to not stake everything on one kind of massive cosmic breakthrough or massive unification with the whole of creation. Instead, to stake small amounts, small stakes on actually growing in our self-compassion that will lead naturally to more compassion for others, will hopefully lead to more compassionate action, and will include more and more of what ails us, rather than being overwhelmed by what ails us, because we won't include it. The more we learn to encompass what ails us, the less it may overwhelm us, the more capacious we become through developing basically mindfulness. So here's my sort of conclusion, really. I mean, I could say personally, I've been through quite a lot of that second kind of practice. It's in a certain way, certain time, it suited me. And I am still very grateful to the years, even decades, I've been on that, predominantly more in that rut. It's not quite fair to call it a rut because it's very beautiful and expansive. But yes, second wheel rut. But actually, things happen, and something happened to me. Two things happened to me a few years ago that were very difficult, very, very difficult. And actually, at that time, and I say more accurately, one thing happened to me directly, a head injury. And then something else happened to somebody I love very much, I'm very, very close to. And both were difficult, both at the same time. And actually, I'm so glad that there's rut number one. I needed to go back. I needed to be just in the embrace of the most compassionate practice I could find, the simplest, easiest, the kind of practice that you don't want to ever graduate from, that's just how to really to come back to the point of it all. That practice is just here to help us be the beings that we are, to help us be humans, individually and collectively. And the other point that related to this is sort of, I realized when I've been sitting with this cart track image a few years ago, it's really caught my attention, but at some point I sort of thought, well, wait a minute, it's a good idea. I like that. I like that bringing together these apparently slightly different paths. It's a very nice thing, I think, to do. But what's the cart? What's the cart? What's the wagon? And of course, the answer then suddenly became so clear. Basically, the wagon is our human heart. It's our human heart, traveling, growing, getting helped, maybe not growing, just getting helped, being tended, being nourished, being soothed when it needs it, being helped, being connected with what it needs to be connected with. Yeah, maybe we can study it, the shin, really clearly see shin, the heart mind, Chinese character shin, heart mind. If you really see it, there's a lot of Zen on this. You discover that it's none other than the whole universe or whatever. Bodhidharma said, just look at your heart mind and find you're already totally awakened in your heart mind. Fine. But I actually also want to just help this human heart mind that isn't awakened, that is just an incredibly tender, sensitive instrument, organ, wonder, miracle, the mammalian heart, the limbic system, the grades of emotion that we go through, the kinds of tenderness that we're capable of. And so in the end, I feel that, I'd like to say that actually sort of both ruts really are actually, maybe this sounds like a bit of a leap, but what I feel now is that both ruts are basically in the end about love. And that's why actually Noah, thank you for a kind introduction, but he mentioned this program called Original Love, which Roshi has kindly contributed to, and Natalie as well. It's about not original nature, and definitely not original sin, but original love. And I think really once we're touching that, who cares what wheel rut we're in? As long as the water of love, call it compassion if you prefer, the water of compassion is flowing. You just need a drop of it, one little dewdrop of it, and it changes. It sort of changes everything. It doesn't have to be big cosmic experience, breakthrough experience at all. Just one tiny drop of compassion, of heart opening, and then maybe the cart rolls a bit more smoothly, better lubricated on down the track. Okay, that's my offering for tonight. Thank you very much.